We need part 2. Well, here it is, part 2. Guys, about 2 months ago now, I made a video stripping this here KTM 350 all the way down to the frame and saying that I was going to stuff a 600cc two-stroke motor inside of it. I lied. I didn't lie on purpose, but I stripped this bike all the way down to the frame, sent this frame out to Quebec, Canada, where Panthera Motorsports is located. They 3D scanned this frame into the computer and started mocking up what it would look like to get that motor in this frame. And as it turns out, the 350 frame is quite a bit different than the 250 two-stroke frame or the 450 frame, both of which fit that 600cc engine. Apparently, these frame rails are more compressed and sit farther back, more narrow than those other two frames, and that 600 engine simply won't fit. So now I have a completely disassembled 350 SXF that I need to decide what to do with, but I've already acquired a new chassis for the snow bike build, and that is this 2021 Honda CRF 450R. Now, if you have been around the channel for a while, you recognize this bike as this is Monty's old 450. Monty bought a new CRF 250 last year and has since been trying to sell this 450 without much luck, and when Sebastian sent me over the model list of compatible bikes with the Panthera 600 engine, this was one of them. So I said, hey Monty, I'll buy your 450. So Monty sold me this beautiful machine right here for $5,300, and it's gonna be pretty crazy to take Monty's old 450 and turn this thing into a rippin' two-stroke snow bike. Now, the original idea with the 350 engine that I pulled out of that chassis was to put that motor inside a Honda frame. I think doing a Honda CRF 350 build would be super popular and would be a really cool giveaway bike, because from my experience, everyone tends to love the 350 motor and wishes that Japanese manufacturers offered them. So while I tear this bike down, getting it ready to become a snow bike, I'm also going to take that opportunity to see if that 350 motor fits in this frame and what sort of modifications would have to be made to make it possible. Because that would be a huge project with tons of custom welding, custom machining, probably 3D printing and oddball solutions for where to mount different things on the bike. So while this is ultimately episode 2 of the snow bike build, we'll just be sprinkling a little bit more content in here, seeing if other potential future projects are possible. But with fall having arrived here in Montana, it would be a shame to not let this 450 eat just a little bit before we take it apart.
Fun, dude. 450s just eat. About as fun as it gets, baby. I've not seen the point in owning a 450. They wear you out quicker than most bikes, and there's other bikes that do everything just as well, namely the KTM 350. But what I have, you know, like my 300 hard enduro bike, coming out and just letting this thing grunt, hard to beat, baby, hard to beat. Ow, ow. Sometimes it's tricky to wrap my mind around the fact that I'm taking this motorcycle and putting an engine in it that's going to give it even more power. Because the 450 torque is just insane, and this Panthera engine is supposed to be a torque monster. If anyone has any ideas for what I should do with this 450 engine, leave them in the comments. I have kind of fallen in love with this Honda 450, man. This thing's too much fun.
While I had an absolute blast riding this CRF 450, it is now time to begin the process of transforming this 4-stroke motocross bike into the ultimate 2-stroke snow bike. One more pan over of this bike in its current form. This machine has been around for a lot of great memories, ripping with the boys, and while I am stoked to give it a whole new life, this Honda 450 has done its job well. Like I said earlier, while disassembling this 450, I wanted to take some measurements to see if the CRF 350R would be possible. That is, a modern Honda chassis with a modern KTM 350 engine. So this led me to a somewhat unusual order of operations, as the swing arm was the part I needed to remove to take arguably the most important measurement and determine if the CRF 350 project could be done. Swing arm removal is actually pretty quick. I removed the rear wheel followed by the chain, and then I removed the rear brake lever and freed up the caliper so it could come off with the swing arm. At this point, there were just 2 bolts left to remove, one that attaches the swing arm to the linkage, and then of course the swing arm axle itself. Now, I had just assumed that a KTM 350 engine would be more narrow where it mounts to the swing arm than a Honda 450 engine. I knew this would be an immediate crux of the project if that wasn't the case, and unfortunately, it wasn't. The KTM engine is 12 millimeters wider than the width available between the Honda swing arm. This means the Honda swing arm would require some mods to make this work, and I'm not sure if it would be structurally strong enough with 6 mil of material removed from each side. Along with that, the KTM countershaft sprocket would sit somewhere around 4 mil to the left of where the Honda countershaft sprocket sits, which would also be tricky to deal with. Ultimately, after taking these measurements, I decided it made the most sense to put the 350 back together. It is a complete, nice running bike, and without a real purpose for this chassis or engine now, turning it back into a 350 and riding or selling it was the logical thing to do. Reassembly went well, and it gave me the opportunity to clean components and fix a couple little things that previous owners had done incorrectly or replaced with incorrect parts. Now, I know I'm way off in left field here from the snow bike project, but if you've been following along with my 2025 KTM 300 videos, you will know I robbed the fuel pump from this KTM 350 for my new IMS 3.5 gallon tank on my 300. OEM KTM fuel pumps are $350, but Quantum Fuel Systems offers a replacement for $190, so I wanted to test one of their pumps out on this bike. Now, I've installed a few KTM fuel pumps, but always in a large tank, and that makes it much easier to feed the pump through the tank. With this OEM SX tank, it is a tight fit, and I struggled for a while to feed the pump where it belongs. I ended up wrapping some wire around one of the ends, and I fished it through the tank with a magnet and then pulled the pump through with that wire. That worked much better, and despite still being a bit tedious, made it feasible, whereas without the wire, I would have been struggling for a long time. With that new fuel pump from Quantum Fuel Systems installed, I was able to finish up the KTM 350, which fired right up and is a dirt bike once again. So guys, that is the current status of this project. I have had tons of comments over the last couple months asking what is going on with the 600 two-stroke, and I wanted to provide an update. So you guys are probably looking at this thinking, well, where's the engine? So as of right now, I'm supposed to have the Panthera 600cc two-stroke engine on the 3rd week of November. Development of a brand new engine is obviously a huge undertaking, so props to Panthera for even making it happen. I know they are now producing these engines as fast as they can, and I've got my spot in line. So if all goes to plan from here, you should be seeing the next episode in this series sometime in December, and I will have that Panthera 600cc two-stroke engine right here in the garage. And of course, I need to continue stripping this 450 down to the frame, get the suspension set up for snow biking, get myself a kit, a whole plethora of things to do to transform this thing into a snow bike. So as soon as I get the shipping notification for that engine, we will get things rolling. In the meantime, I have links down below where you can find yourself some merch. There's a link for Rocky Mountain where I buy all of my tools and parts, and I earn a commission on your purchases when you use that link, along with a link to Quantum Fuel Systems. Big thanks to them for getting me a fuel pump for that 350. I will let you guys know I have a secret build in the works, and I hope to have that thing complete in the next few weeks. Here's a little sneak peek of one part I Cerakoted for that project. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for your patience with this project, and I will be back hopefully sooner rather than later with episode 3.
See if we can hard enduro on the 450. Got that? Oh. Big girl gotta eat. Oh, yeah.